Welcome back to the channel. If you've been following for a while, you'll remember that I was doing a no coding VR Oculus Quest experience slash game thingamajig, official title. So we're taking that a bit further now. So we've done everything that we can for the most part without writing a single line of C# code, just by using Oculus's built-in components, Unity's built-in components, mostly Oculus stuff. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start doing more. Now, I've been doing development for 2 years now, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less, and learning C# code, it's learning another language. I kind of understood the basic things about programming. I knew what different variables were. I took an intro to computing course in university, so I know the basic idea and how coding works, but I can kind of read most C# now at this point, but still don't fully write it. And even though I've written some custom actions for this tool called Playmaker I'm about to discuss, I still love using visual scripting. Now, a while ago, Unity bought Bolt, I believe it's called, and it's free now with Unity. It's a visual scripting tool. But the thing with Bolt is you still pretty much need to know how to script. For the most part. Like, I tried looking at Bolt, and I've watched Bolt tutorials. It's super complicated, tying all these different tiny little pieces together to make things happen. The tool I use is called Playmaker. I'll include a link in the description, an affiliate link in the description to the Unity Asset Store. It'll help out the channel if you purchase Playmaker through there. If you're a student, you can get Playmaker for, I think, half off through Hutong Games' website. I'll put that link in the description as well. But because we're dealing with the Oculus Quest, there's one more asset that I'm going to be using, and that's the Oculus Touch Playmaker Toolkit. And I'll include an affiliate link for that below. But I'm also going to be giving away some Unity codes to get the Oculus Touch Integration Toolkit for free. If you didn't already notice in the thumbnail, what we're going to be trying to do, because I really wanted a theme for taking this VR game experience training tutorial even further, and I thought it'd be really cool to do superpowers. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to start with flying, because that's probably the most iconic superpower, flying. So we're going to see what we can do to make ourselves fly in VR. Now, we could just create a player controller that lets you fly, but I want to do more than just using the joystick, look in a direction, and go. We're going to make it a little bit more clever than that, a little bit more fun. So let's get started. All right, so I have other tutorials on my channel on how to use Playmaker. There's Playmaker tips and tricks. If you don't use Playmaker, you're not interested in Playmaker, still stick around and watch this tutorial, because if you do C# scripting, you're still going to be able to follow along, because it's going to be very visual, and you're going to see exactly the types of things I do, and you'll easily be able to translate it into code. I have my player. I removed everything else off of it except my character controller. So there's my OVR camera rig, and it's at 1.8 meters on the player. All right, and here's our player, and I left it at default. I wasn't too worried about it right now. I usually don't have my character controllers be this wide. I usually bring in the radius a bit, but and I usually bring in the height a little bit as well, but it's fine. So in the previous parts of my VR tutorials, we just used Oculus's built-in controller, but I'm not going to do that anymore, because I want more control. So I'm going to eventually write my own controller. But we're not going to invest that in this. We're just going to go straight with flying. So we need a new FSM. So what I like to do is, a lot of times you'll have just an empty game object that you can house all your scripts, FSMs in. But when it comes to my player, I like to have all the FSMs, if you're not familiar with Playmaker, your scripts, that are going to be impacting the player on the player itself. So I can come over here to add component, and I can just type Playmaker FSM, but I usually just like to have the Playmaker window open. I right click and add FSM. I like to name my FSMs, otherwise I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to call this one Super Movement Toggle. All right, and I'm calling Super Movement because in previous series, I'm thinking about doing Super Speed. So we're going to start with flying today. All right, our first state. What do you think our first state's going to be? All right, so normally we'd have our hero just kind of walking around the street. What's going to make him start to fly? Or her. So we need to have some type of toggle. So I am going to, in this state, I'm going to go ahead and name it, and I'm going to wait for joystick toggle. I could even make that bigger. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are, in Playmaker, what you do is you can either Click on the action browser down here to pull up the actions. I never do that though. What's nice is if you're in a state, you can just click in the empty space in the state and the actions panel will come up. All right, if I clear out my search, you can see all my different categories. I'm going to be using the one for Oculus. Again, this does not come pre-installed with Playmaker. This is something that I've purchased as a separate asset on the Unity Asset Store, and I am giving away keys to that as well. Information in the description. I have 2 keys. 2 keys I'm giving away for the Oculus Touch integration. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I need some type of button. Okay, a button is going to toggle my flight mode. So I'm just going to double click on Get Touch Button, and I actually want it twice. Because the way I've set this up is, doesn't matter if you're left or right-handed, whichever one you want to do. And so the buttons that get used the least amount in VR games is the actual joystick buttons. Now the joysticks obviously get used a lot, but actually pushing them in as buttons don't get used so much. So I'm actually going to use those to toggle this. And that is just going to be primary thumbstick. And I just want to get button down, and then I want to send an event. I'm just going to call this toggle. All right, and then I need to do the same thing for the right controller. Button type, primary thumbstick, get button down, send event, toggle. All right, if I hold down the control key and drag off of that event, it'll create a new state for me. Now, I don't want to instantly go into flying. What I think would be cool would be when you toggle into flight mode, you just start to hover. So I'm going to create a hover state. So what's our hover state going to look like? So in order to hover, we're going to be moving our character up a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the current position of my character, and then I'm just going to move it up a bit from that position. So I'm just going to double click in here again, and I am just going to get the position, not that, get the, what did I do? Remove that. Get position. Weird that it wasn't the first thing in the list. All right, there we go. We're going to get the position, and in this case, I can leave it as owner because I'm getting the position of my player. My player has a character controller on it, and I want it in self space because if for some reason my player is like at an angle or something, I don't want that to mess up. And I just want to know the y-axis position. All right, so we're going to call this, I'm going to call it start Y. All right, that's where my Y position is starting. I mean, I already looked at this. Basically what I did now is I just kind of took my player and I just sort of just lifted him up. And I'm like, well, what looks like a good hover amount? And I just came up with 0.25. So I'm going to do a float operator because this position I got, if you notice, it's got a decimal point. That means it's a float. And so I want to take my current position and I want to make it go up by 0.25. So I need to do some math. You can do float add, but just to make it easier for me to debug, I'm going to do float operator and make a new float rather than keep changing that first float. All right, so the first float, start Y, and we're just going to add 0.25 to it. I already have add on there, and I'm going to store this as my hover height. Not sure why I did that, but there we go. Hover height. Boom. And then what I want to do is I don't want to set my position, because you might think that'd be the next step. We got the position, we add 0.25, sorry about that, and then now we want to set the player position. But if we do that, it's just going to be like, bam, snap. And we don't want it to snap. So a really cool thing that exists is called float interpolate. We got an action for that. I'm going to go float inter, there it is, float interpolate. And so what we're going to do is we are going to get our, and this is another reason why we need our start float and our hover float to be separate, because we're going to interpolate between the two. I'm going to put ease in and out because that just makes it look a little bit cooler. So we're going to start at our start Y, and then we're going to end at our hover height, which is just 0.25 more than our start Y. And doing it in 1 second should be fine. So now we're going to store our float, and I'm just going to call it my enter float. And we'll go ahead and create a finished event that we're not using just yet, but I'll put it on there. And now we need to set the position. And so we're going to set the position of the owner, which is the player. Remember, it's got our character controller on it. We're going to set its Y position to our our interfloat. And we're doing it in self space, okay? Make sure everything's in self space here. And we want this to be doing it every frame. Otherwise, it's going to do it in the first frame and be done. So what's happening is this float is changing every frame for a second. And so every frame, we want that character's position to change. And that should be enough to hover. So why don't we try it out? So I just, in order to not have any console errors, I just control drag off of this finished event, and I have an empty state here. And let's just see how that looks. All right, here we are. There's my hands. Okay, I forgot to mention I still have the local avatar on my controller there. So I can look around the scene, right? But let's say I'm ready to fly now. So I can do either on my left hand or on my right hand. I just hit the joystick. Boom. And now I'm hovering. All right, and what we're going to do here in a little bit is if I hit the joystick again, we'll stop hovering. All right, so let's go even further with that. Okay, so we have hover initiated. So now that we're hovering, we want to start flying. So I wanted to think, how do I want to fly? I mean, I could now set it up to where now that I'm hovering, I'm in flying mode. I could just push the joystick and move in the direction that I'm looking, but that's lame. This is VR. We need to do a little bit more to make it a little bit more immersive. So I had a cool idea of why not create a fist and then we move in the direction our fist is pointing. So that's what we're going to do. So in this state here, we need to check and see if we have a fist. I like naming my states first whenever I can, because it lets me know where I'm going, and then I can figure out what I'm going to do to make it happen. All right, so I know I need to check for the fist here. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I know I'm going to check for the fist, so I'm put that in the state, and so now I have a goal. So we could do a lot of different things and make this FSM really complicated to do all these, but let's not do that. Let's create a separate FSM just to find the fist. So we're gonna go ahead and I can either come here and click Add FSM, New FSM, or I can just come over here to Add Component, Playmaker FSM, and I'm gonna call this one Fist Checker, and click Edit on that. All right, so now we are going to check for our fist. All right, so how do we check for our fist? What makes a fist? Now, I checked this a couple different ways. I put on my headset, I looked at the hand, and I just slowly pushed the buttons until I figured out what makes a fist. So I knew right away we had to have the grip held, but then your hand looks like this. So to get your pointer finger down, you just have to touch the index trigger. And then to get the thumb down, you just have to touch the thumb down to either one of the buttons. All right, so that's what we're going to do. But we need to do it on both hands because either hand could be a fist. So let's do that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get touch. Again, this is in the Oculus set. Right here, you can see get touch button. I'm just going to grab from the recents because that's where I was. And so we'll start with the left controller. And the button we want is the primary hand trigger. That's the grip, okay? Primary hand trigger. And we're just going to get button. So what does that mean? So that's different than using get button down because we are holding the button down, but we're not looking to like send an event or anything like that yet. So what we're going to do is set the bool is true if the button's down, false if the button's up. So we're going to get button, and we're going to store this as grip held. So when the grip is held, this will be true. All right, so we know we have the grip. Now we got to get the other two buttons. So there's a different type of action we're going to use for this because it's a touch. It's not a button. I know it's confusing because they all have the word touch in it because these are considered Oculus's touch controllers. But we're going to get what's called a near touch now. So here we have get touch near touchpad. The original Rift controllers, I think, had a touchpad on them. But now touchpad just means the touch capacitive buttons that the thumb hits. All right, so here we have get touch near touchpad. I guess it could be any of the buttons that have capacitive touch. All right, so we were doing left controller, and this one is the primary index trigger, or it can be the thumb button. So primary index trigger has touch capacitive on it, and that's what we're getting now for our index finger. And for this as well, we're also going to store the button. So if it's touching, it's changing that bool to true. And let's just name this bool trigger touched. And I'm just going to copy paste this. And now we're going to do the thumbs because it could be either button 1 or button 2, but it's just all the same. And we're just going to call this thumb touched. All right, so now we have a bool true if the grip is held. We have a bool true if the index is on the index trigger. We have a bool true if our thumb is touching the buttons. Boom, we have our fist. But now what do we do that we have these three bools? So there's a great action called bool all true. So if all of those bools are true, we know that we have a fist. So I'm going to come over here and go bool all. And there we go, bool all true. And we have three different variables that we need to be true. And so we have our grip held, we have our thumb touched, and we have our trigger touched. All right, and we're going to store this as our left fist. So fist L. If all three of those bools are true, now this bool, fist L, will be true. And that'll tell us that we have a left fist. You'll see why later it's important for us to know if it's our left fist or our right fist. All right, we should also check this every frame. And now we're going to repeat all this again because now we got to do the right hand. So I'm just going to highlight all those, Control-C to copy, and then right-click Paste Actions. So now we want to get touch button on the right controller, and I'm just going to call this grip held right. And then on this one, switch that to right controller, new variable, trigger, touched right. Again, it's very important for the method I'm about to use that we distinguish between the left and the right. All right, we got that one. And then we want this one to be right controller, and we're going to call this thumb touched right. And we need to do grip held right, thumb touched right, trigger touched right. Store this as new variable fist right. So that'll be true if all of those are touched. There's more. There's more that we're still doing to this single state here. So we're not going to set up things for, I don't want our previous FSM to look for both fists. I just want to know, is one of the fists held? So now we're going to do a bool for any true. All right, and we're going to look at our fist L and our fist R. So we're looking at two variables here. We have our fist L and we have our fist R. So if either one of those is true, then we're just going to store our fist variable as true every frame. This one every frame? Yeah. Okay. But, and spoiler alert, all right, I'll go ahead and tell you. So one fist and you're going to fly. Two fists and you're going to fly really fast. So we need to know if we're double fisting. So we're going to do another bool all true. And we're going to check for those same two variables, the fist left and fist right. And we're going to store this as double fist. And we're going to check every frame. Okay, so to review, we're getting, on the left hand, we're getting the grip is down. And we're storing that bool as true if the grip is held. We're getting index finger touch. We're storing that as trigger touch true. And then we're getting thumb touch. We're storing that as true. And if all those things are true, we have a fist. And we're doing the same thing with the right hand. So we have a fist L, a fist R, bools to true or false and tell us which one is fisted. Or if they're both, we have double fist, bool. Fist checker, done. We will not be coming back to this FSM. We have everything we need here. All right, so now that we have our fist checker done, let's go back to our super movement toggle FSM. So now we're at, what is it going to be like to check this fist? We need to check the fist now so that we know if we have a fist. So we now need to get the bool from the other FSM. So we're going to get FSM bool. And it is on this still same character, right? Player, it's got the character controller, so we're putting all our FSMs on. And we want to look at our fist checker, and the variable we want is we want to know if we have a fist at all. All right, so we're just going to look at fist. We don't care if it's left, we don't care if it's right, we just want to look for fist. And we're going to go ahead and store this also as fist, and we're going to check it every frame. All right, so now we're going to do a bool test. So fist, if it's true, it's time to fly, baby. And I'll go ahead and click on that and create the event. All right, you can see it over here. If it's false, we're just going to sit around and keep checking. So we're still checking. We're doing that bool test every frame. But even though we have the super movement enabled because we pushed the thumbstick down, maybe we changed our mind and we don't want to fly anymore. We need to go back to how the hover was initiated. Let's get both of these. All right, first state, wait for joystick toggle. Click on both of those, Control C to copy. And then we're going to come down here and paste. So now if we click on these, we're not going to, well, we can use the toggle event still. All right, so we're going to add the toggle event. So what we're going to do is, let's go ahead and take care of this toggle event. I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to click off of it to create a new state. And in this state, we're not going to do it just yet, but we want to disable flying. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing in that state, but we're not going to do it just yet. All right, let's come back to the check if fist. I think this is everything we need in our state because we're checking to see if there's a fist, and if there is a fist, we're going to fly. So I'm going to hold down the Control key, click on fly, drag out, and now we're flying. And to make this stand out a bit more for myself, I'm just going to right-click on the state, set the color as green, because we're doing some flying now. So as soon as we get into the flying state, if you remember, we are going to potentially have double-fisted flying. So the very first thing I want to do when I get into the fly state is I want to see if I'm double-fisting. So we're going to get that FSM bool again, but a different one. We're going to get the double-fisted one. So we're going to go to Fist Checker, and we're going to check our double-fist bool, and let's store it as double-fist. And we want to do that every frame. All right, now we're going to go ahead and do another bool test, because if we are double-fisting, then we want to do double-fisted flying. All right, and that's true, and we need to check that every frame. And we'll go ahead and drag that out. We'll set this color as green as well. And we're going to call this double-fisted flying. All right. Okay, so if we're not double-fisted flying, though, okay, which is what those two actions did, if we're not double-fisted flying, we need to do normal flying. So we need to get the forward direction of something, so we know where we're flying. Now, a lot of times in VR games, it determines your forward direction based on where you're looking. So for Oculus, it gets the center eye anchor's forward direction. Onward, however, does something different if you've played Onward, and I think it gets the forward direction of your gun, or your right hand anchor, which is what we're going to do, because we want to fly in the direction of our fist. So we're going to get the forward direction. I'm going to specify a game object, and I want this right hand anchor. Drag that right in there. And I'm going to save this as forward. All right, notice this is a vector 3. So we have an X, Y, and a Z coordinate. And we want to get that direction every frame. But that's going to be pretty slow speed. All right, those aren't going to be very big numbers. So we'll be crawling through the air. So we want to make that number bigger. So I'm going to do vector 3 multiply. All right, we could do an operator as well, but this I just want to, this will be fine. I'm going to replace the forward by a bigger number by just multiplying by 3. And we're going to continue doing that every frame. So it's taking that forward direction and multiplying it by 3 every frame. All right, now once we have our forward direction and we've multiplied it by 3, and I mean, you may want to even make this a variable. So like as your player levels up, their default flying speed can be even faster. But I'm going to leave it as 3. And let's get some space here. Now we're going to move. All right, so are we going to use controller move or are we going to use controller simple move? We're going to use controller move. Because simple move ignores the vertical direction and we're flying. So we don't want to ignore vertical direction. So we're going to move our owner, right? Because our FSM is on the player. Our player has the character controller. And we're going to move forward. All right? Because we got our forward direction of our fist. We multiplied it by 3. And that's what we want our controller to move. And we want to move in self space. And per second. Yeah, leave per second checked as well. But we don't want to just be flying nonstop. Okay? If we stop making a fist, we should stop moving. So we need to get FSM Bool, the owner, right? Fist checker. Check just for fist. Let's store it as fist. We'll check it every frame, and now we're going to do a Bool test. Put that back in the right order. Bool test, we're going to check our fist, and if it's false, we need to stop flying. All right, and we'll go back to the check if fist state. And we need to make sure we're doing that every frame. So just to review, we are flying. And if we lose our fist, we're going to stop flying. It's unlikely, but it's possible that we may want to disable super movement during this flying state. But that's unlikely that while we're fisting, we're going to toggle one of those thumbsticks. But just in case, we'll add the ability to disable the super move here as well. So I'll just come in here, these last two actions, I'll copy them, and I'll paste them into this state as well. And then I'll take that toggle up into the disable flying state that we haven't done anything with yet. All right, so let's see how this works. So we have to hit one of the joysticks, push it in. We're hovering. And let's take off. Let's make a fist. And we're flying. Pretty sweet. I feel like a superhero. Let's fly back down. Hello, police officer. I'm here to save the day. All right, I think that's a good stopping point for now. Stay tuned next time. Now that we've managed to handle the single fist flying, we're going to take a look at the double-fisted super speed boost. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're interested in getting that key to the Oculus Touch Playmaker Toolkit, feel free to check out the link in the description of this video for how to enter that competition. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you know when the next piece of this tutorial series comes out. Thanks a bunch for watching.